Yes, it is true. So I just want to pause. I want to welcome everybody to Get Lit number 3. We're talking about James Daunt, the new CEO of Barnes & Noble, and he says he is giving more autonomy to the individual stores. He is trying to decentralize the ordering process. It's going to take a while, but it's in the right track. I think it's good. I feel good about what he's doing.
Cool.
Yes. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So welcome, everyone. It's 8:03. I'm going to jump in. We have the chat open. We have, for those of you who are new, I'm so glad you're here. I want to try to keep to this half-hour format. Feel free to message each other in the chat, and I will try to comment on that as I can, starting with the fact that Jean posted that she just read Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. You loved it, Jean?
Yeah.
Okay.
A real fast read. It's a short book.
Or The World We Left Behind.
The World We Left Behind.
Right. And it's a quick read. It's beautifully written.
The vocabulary is amazing.
The vocabulary, that is the most notable thing. He doesn't say she walked across the room. He will never use an ordinary word.
Except the book was so good that I didn't want to stop and look up words. So I just kept going. You could contextually, you could figure out what he was saying.
Yes, it is about a white family that is headed out to the Hamptons. They rented a house for a week of vacation. And then there's this huge blackout in New York, and this older Black couple who own the home show up at the house and say, we're not going back to New York, we're staying with you. And what happens? And really, it kind of is the end of the world.
Oh.
All right, so I'm going to jump in. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Hi, Rayanne. She didn't hear me. Her sound's not on yet. Hi, Rayanne. Okay, so I'm going to start with, oh, wait, I have to say that hold on. I forgot to do this very important thing, which is put my PowerPoint on. Here I am. Okay, so I'm having a contest that some of you have already jumped in. And Julie, I think you're already winning. So if you share this, please share the link about Get Lit with Lynn with your friends and tell them to write to me and say that they that you sent them, and I will enter your name in a drawing, and the winner will get a free book. I'll send you a free book. And some of you are already on the list, already have entries going on. Okay, so in publishing news, I seem to be talking a lot about Simon & Schuster. So I talked about how they were thought of as this publisher that takes political risks in terms of what they're choosing to publish. And then last week about how they canceled a book they had signed up with Senator Josh Hawley because of his role in the insurrection at the Capitol. And in the week that has passed since we last met, Josh Hawley has found himself a new publisher. And his new publisher is a publisher called Regnery. And they are super right-wing publisher. So I'm not at all surprised that they picked him up. And the irony of it is that they are distributed by Simon & Schuster. So they will still indirectly be selling his book. Another thing that happened recently in publishing is that about 250 editors, agents, and authors have signed a letter demanding that the industry deny Donald Trump the publication of any post-presidential memoir. The letter is titled, "No Book Deals for Traitors." They oppose any Trump administration official publishing a future book, including the outgoing president, who is rumored to be considering a memoir. There is a novelist named Barry Liga who organized the letter, and this is what he said. "We all love book publishing, but we have to be honest. Our country is where it is in part because publishing has chased the money and notoriety of some pretty sketchy people and has granted those same people both the imprimatur of respectability and a lot of money through sweetheart book deals. We affirm that participation in the administration of Donald Trump must be considered a uniquely mitigating criterion for publishing houses when considering book deals. So that's a strong statement. There has been a lot of upheaval in the publishing industry this year. Things started out in 2020. Those of you who might have read American Dirt, I think that came up in conversation last week. That was a very controversial publication because it was a Mexican woman's story written by a white writer, and Mexican authors objected not so much to that, but to the fact that the publisher put so much marketing money behind it and wasn't supporting writers of color in the same way. This led to a lot of a deep look at the lack of diversity in the people who work in publishing, and now all the things that are happening that we've started discussing. However, sales of books were good in 2020. It was a pretty good year for publishers. So things are going along as we head into the new year. I came across an article from Forbes magazine from November that was a list of the 100 richest self-made women. And I thought, will I see any publishing people on this list? That is doubtful. However, there were two people on here. Number 56, Nora Roberts, with a fortune of $400 million. The best-selling author has written more than 220 romance books, and she also writes crime novels under the name J.D. Robb. And at number 58, any guesses?
Danielle Steele.
Yes, ding, 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 exactly. Danielle Steele at $385 million. She's 73. She's got a mansion in San Francisco, and she has sold more than 650 million books in 69 countries since 1973.
Wow.
So that's pretty darn impressive. So that's my update on the business of publishing this week. Quick updates on things that we talked about last week in terms of.
Before you move on.
Yes, Marga.
So with all that you explained regarding like Holly's book, and now they got a new publisher, do you think that bookstores are going to band together and not sell books like that?
That's a great question. An independent bookstore has the option to make a choice and to choose not to sell a book that they don't believe in or agree with. A store like Barnes & Noble will carry all the books across the spectrum. Will I put his book in the front of the store? That's a question to be determined. My customers have certainly pointed out that they think that our book selection has too liberal a bias. Right now, we have a table of Joe Biden books right in the front of the store, but we feel justified in doing that. We don't, because A, he's the new president, and more important, he's
a Delawarean.
He's a local boy. He's our boy. So, but it's a tricky question, Marga. It's hard. I try not to, when I owned a bookstore, I tried not to be political, but, and if we have more time, you could talk to Avisa about this, who works for Uncle Bobby's, and they're probably more political, right? Oh, did you want to say something, Avisa?
Yeah, so I guess this fits in like the publishing news, but Uncle Bobby's general manager was, he just had an article published in Publishers Weekly, specifically about the challenges that Black bookstores have in terms of just in the publishing world. And it was in response to Tattered Cover bookstore in Denver was recently bought out, and the major shareholder is a person of color, and so it was immediately deemed like the biggest Black-owned bookstore in the country for not having really been catered to communities of color before this. And the article was in response to that. And if it's okay, I'd like to share it. It's just an interesting perspective. And I think that we'll likely have more to say in Publishers Weekly specifically.
Do you have a link to the article? Oh, yeah, if you could put that in the chat, that would be fabulous. Thank you. Just to support what Avisa just said, the Tattered Cover, do you know that store? It's a huge independent store in Denver. And this guy named Len Vlahos and his wife bought it about 3 years ago. And they got themselves into a lot of trouble last year because there was some right-wing author that they were hosting an event and people protested and they said, hey, we don't make decisions. We let anybody come here. And it was a really stupid thing to say. And they got in a lot of trouble. And the end result was they had to sell the store. So anyway, there's obviously more to that story, but thank you for sharing that article. Okay. So because you're all dying to know what I've been reading, and I mentioned it really quickly last week, I finished Chuggy Bane. And, oh, I just saw Key's comment. I do have to say, Avisa has the best earrings ever. This was the Booker Prize winner, and maybe we can talk another time about the kinds of books that the Booker tends to award their prizes to. This was a long, dark, depressing, important book. And then thanks to Diana Leamy, I've been reading Sempre Susan, which is a very short memoir about Sigrid Nunez's time living with Susan Sontag. And boy, is it good. You were right. It's really good. And if you like literary gossip, I mean, this is like the name-droppingest book I've ever read. It's so good. Okay, now on to new books. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and I'm going to tell you some of the books that came out today. There were a lot of books that came out today. The first one, I started with a really, really important book. So as the Bidens get ready to move into the White House, they're doing something that many people think is extremely important, and people are very happy about this. And what they are doing is, okay, sorry. They are bringing dogs back to the White House.
Yeah, I saw that.
So this is a new children's picture book. So if you have any little kids in your life and you need to get them a book, this is about Champ and Major. Major is a rescue dog, and he will be the first rescue dog in the White House. And people are hoping that this will encourage more people to adopt rescue books, rescue dogs. I don't know what rescue books would be. We'll have to think about that. But Champ is an old hand at this. He's been in the White House before when his dad was the vice president, but he's all excited to show Major around his new house and give him a tour. So that book was published today. This is a new psychological thriller for those of you who enjoy that genre. Lisa Gardner is a best-selling author. You may have heard of her or read her. This is her brand new book, just out today, already on the Barnes & Noble bestseller list. And she has a really charming bio. She says, Lisa Gardner, a best-selling thriller novelist, began her career in food service, but after catching her hair on fire numerous times, she took the hint and focused on writing instead. A self-described research junkie, she has transformed her interest in police procedure and criminal minds into a streak of internationally acclaimed novels. Now, for a bit of fun, if you're a fan, Lisa invites her readers to enter the annual Kill a Friend, Maim a Buddy sweepstakes. You get to submit a name, and every year one lucky stiff is selected to meet a grand end in Lisa's novel. Past winners have nominated spouses, best friends, and even themselves. Lisa lives in New Hampshire. She spends a great deal of time outdoors, which is why I chose this photo I thought was very interesting of her with a hawk. So Lisa Gardner, she writes some series, but this is a new standalone book with a new character named Frankie Elkin, who is a middle-aged woman, a recovering alcoholic with more regrets than belongings. And she spends her life searching for missing people that the world has stopped looking for. And one of the aspects of the story that got me excited is that the particular character whom she's searching for in this book lives in Mattapan, which is described as a Boston neighborhood with a rough reputation, right, Marga? And my mother grew up in Mattapan. So I was very excited to see this appear in a book. Now, this was not published today. This was published in December, but I'm bringing it up to you today because it's been really popular at the bookstore. Have any of you read Marie Benedict? What she says she likes to do is sort of resurrect women from history, or sort of excavate them, maybe a better word. So as you see from the books around, they're all different women in history. Einstein's first wife. The only woman in the room is about Hedy Lamarr, and her new book is about Agatha Christie and a particular time in her life. In December of 1926, Agatha Christie went missing. Investigators found her empty car on the edge of a deep pond. The only clues, some tire tracks nearby and a fur coat left in the car, which was strange for the frigid weather. Her World War I veteran husband and her daughter had no knowledge of her whereabouts, and they unleashed an unprecedented manhunt to find the mystery author. 11 days later, she just mysteriously reappeared and said she had amnesia and had no idea where she was. So this book is about that story and what really happened to Agatha Christie during those 11 days. Another book that is based on some history is this, Melanie Benjamin, another successful author. Her big book was called The Aviator's Wife. And this is based on something that happened in 1988 in January in the prairie. And the weather was unusually mild that day. And so all the homesteaders of the Dakota Territory were happy to be outside, and they sent their kids back to school with no coats because it was so warm. And then a huge blizzard came. And just when the schools were letting out, and school teachers had to figure out what to do with the kids, and it was a big disaster. And this is based on that historical occurrence. This is, if you're looking for something playful, Julia Claiborne Johnson wrote Be Frank with Me, and this is her new book, Better Luck Next Time. It takes place in 1938, when women who were seeking quickie divorces would head to the divorce capital of the world, Reno, Nevada. But they had to stay there for 6 weeks to become residents before they could get divorced. So these many of these wealthy divorcees went to a dude ranch called the Flying Leap. And this is about what happens there. And she mixes in a character named Ward, who is a 24-year-old cowboy, ranch hand, who spent a year at Yale, but his family lost everything in the Great Depression. And now he's working there. And they think he's Cary Grant in cowboy boots. So sounds playful. This next book, published today, Meet Me in Bombay, is more of a romance if you enjoy reading romances. It starts in 1913, New Year's Eve. The tagline for the book is, all he needs is to find her, but first he must remember who she is. So, young woman from England in India meets a handsome man, but then he goes off to war, and I guess they have to find each other again after that. So that's this story. This one sounds really interesting to me. Have any of you read Normal People by Sally Rooney, or Donna Tartt, The Secret History? Somehow it feels like a mix of those. St. John the Divine is an elite boarding school. And as it's described, the girls there were notorious for flipping their hair, harassing teachers, chasing boys, and chain smoking cigarettes. And now Josephine, who's in her 30s, who hasn't thought about her time at St. John's for a long time, finds herself back there, and various memories begin to come back that threaten to derail not just her marriage and her career, but her entire sense of self. So this is split between present day Los Angeles and the UK in the 1990s. And the author is a British writer. Her work has appeared in a lot of publications like The Guardian, and she's also a former writer in residence at a men's prison in the UK. So she has a really interesting background. And then I think this is my last novel that I'm talking about tonight, The Yellow Wife. And this has been getting really great reviews. It starts in 1850 on a plantation. A young woman who has led a relatively young Black woman, sheltered life. She's been promised freedom on her 18th birthday, but instead she is sent to a terrible place in Richmond, Virginia, a jail where the enslaved are broken and tortured, and she has to overcome that. The Kirkus review said, Johnson is unsparing in her depiction of the physical, psychological, and spiritual damages wrought by slavery, and realistic in her portrayal of the heroism of Phoebe and others in resisting it. Sadequa Johnson has written 4 novels. She's gotten a lot of acclaim. And what also particularly interests me is she's from Philadelphia, although she lives in Richmond now. And I have a number of Philly writer friends like Nomi Eve and Kelly Simmons, who are part of a writers group called Tall Poppies. They sort of band together to promote each other's books, and she's a tall poppy. So she's very Philadelphia connected, which is nice for those of you who are in Philadelphia. And she's going to be doing a virtual event at the Philadelphia Free Library on January 25th with Jennifer Weiner. So again, I don't know if I've mentioned how highly I think of the Free Library's events, but you definitely should check them out. Okay.
Then look at the chat.
I'm looking at the chat. Okay, so all of the books I'm mentioning are available at Barnes and Noble, and you know.
The chat says that there was an article about her in the paper.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. I didn't see that. I'll look for that article, and I'll share it with you. I'll email it to you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Any other questions or comments before I move on to nonfiction? Here we go. Huh, it went back to the beginning. Can you tell how good I am with my technology? Okay, this is a book by a rabbi about death. How's that for a great sales pitch? He's a senior rabbi at one of the largest synagogues in the world in LA. He gave a particular sermon about dealing with death that turned out to be one of his most popular sermons, and people were requesting it. And then his father died, and he realized that he didn't really know anything about how to deal with death. And so he writes about it now. It's very straightforward. It's very practical. It's very anecdotal. I think it's lovely. It's just a really nice little book. If for any reason this is something that you might find a comfort or something that you'd be interested in reading. Now, this book really appeals to me. Tom Vanderbilt took on a project. It's one of those project books, like A.J. Jacobs wrote a book called The Year of Living Biblically, where he only did things that were written about in the Bible. Or maybe you've seen Gretchen Rubin, The Happiness Project, where she tried a different thing every month to try to see if it made her happy. So he's talking about this sort of beginner mindset, which I think is really beautiful. I have a writer friend who loves to quote the writer Danny Shapiro, who always says, you know, if you mess up, if you're not certain, just begin again, begin again. It's kind of Zen. And so he took on some projects. he thought he would spend a year doing some challenging things simply for the sake of seeing what it was like to put yourself in an uncertain situation and learn new things. So he tried chess, singing, surfing, drawing, and juggling. And I just really like his attitude. He's got one of his first chapters is The Beginner's Guide to Being a Beginner. And then the next chapter is Learning How to Learn. You know, I have a friend named Connie Goldman, who used to be a journalist with NPR. I just got an invitation to make a video for her because she's about to have her 90th birthday. And she used to interview people who were very successful late in life. And what she found was the reason they were still so healthy and so vital was because they had passions and they had work that they loved. And that always felt like a really important message to me. And I think this idea of always having a beginner's mind and of always wanting to learn, you know, I mean, that's kind of why you're all here tonight. And it's why continuing education programs are so popular. Just this idea that we can keep challenging ourselves, but to really challenge, like you see the picture on the cover, to be later in life and then say, I'm going to learn how to surf, that's kind of scary. So I think it's a bold book.
Lynn?
Yes.
Bev, I just wanted to make a comment about that because as a teacher, I found that unless you were willing to be a beginner yourself, you could never relate to what your students were dealing with.
Oh.
You were the expert at something
right.
that they were trying. And in my case, it was writing.
Right.
They would often say, oh, I just can't write. I was never good at it. I said, no, it's just that you're a beginner.
Right.
And until you can put yourself in the place of a beginner,
yes.
I don't think you can be a really effective teacher because that's what your students are.
That's so nice. Thank you, Bev. That's beautiful insight.
So I just want to make another quick comment about beginner's mindset.
Yes.
Just another perspective. I'm a software developer, and one of the methodologies people use sometimes is to kind of use beginner's mindset to have people rotate into projects that they're not familiar with, because it sort of puts them in this heightened sense where they're taking things in and learning, as opposed to the other people who have sort of gotten used to the project, so they bring something new to it.
That's so interesting.
And are able to do something at a faster pace in a different way, adrenaline or whatever else it is associated with it.
That's great. I think that's all great because I think a lot of people are afraid of putting themselves in a situation where they don't know anything.
So I tried surfing 2 years ago when I was in Australia because everyone told me if you're going to surf, that's the place to do it. And I have to tell you, it was exhilarating.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. You might need to read this book, Chris. That's great. All right. I'm going to rush through the rest because I don't want to keep you too long. The next two, this book is about your lungs and how they work by a doctor. And it connected to me with this next book that came out a little while ago, but has also been really popular, Breathe. And I have this friend who every time I get upset, she says, don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to breathe. And I'm like, shut up. Don't tell me to breathe. But I think, these books are telling us it's important and a lot of us don't do it properly. So I thought that was interesting. And quickly, this is a new biography of Kamala by a reporter who has covered California politics for a long time. So this really looks at her coming up in California and what she did. This is a book about racism within the feminist movement, I guess is the easiest way, by the woman who's the editor of Jezebel, which is a feminist publication website. And I think those are all the books that I have for you. I have, this is my shameless plug for my book discussion class. Email me if you're interested or look at my website. This is my social media stuff if you want to follow me. And this is my shameless plug, which you've already given me an opportunity to make for my employer. And I would, I just want to ask, I'm just stopping it. I have something I want to end with that I want to, I'm going to turn the slide back on and show you all at the end, but I just want to ask if anyone has any other questions or comments they would like to make tonight. No. Okay, email me. I love being with you. And in honor of the times that we are in, I'm going to share something with you. I heard this report this morning on NPR. It made me cry. It was really beautiful. Okay, hang on, sorry. Once again, I'm great with the technology. Don't go away. Okay, there's my PowerPoint. So think about this. Oops, there it was. Ah! Okay. Sorry, guys. Kwame Alexander is a young adult writer, and he has this beautiful new collection of poetry. He talked about this Langston Hughes poem as the poem that inspired Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It's just a beautiful thing to read, especially now between MLK Day and the inauguration. And NPR is having this contest. You can see the link down at the bottom if you would like to write your own poem about how you dream a world. They encourage you to participate. So I leave you all with that. I'll leave it on as you sign off. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
I'll see you same time next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't forget to
Thank
breathe.
Inaugural poet tomorrow. Her last name is Gorman, 22 years old, won the prize, was chosen by all the poetry submitted, and her poem is online that she'll be reciting tomorrow at the inauguration.
Oh, Patty, thank you.
Yeah, I heard her interviewed today. She's really lovely.
Yeah, and she had a speech defect as well. Not a stutter, but she couldn't pronounce certain sounds, including the R sound, and it's in her name. And so she talks about overcoming that.
Wow.
She is an amazing person. But
What is her name? What is her name?
her name is Gorman. I forget her first name. Does anybody remember it?
No.
Gorman. She lives in California.
She's the Youth Poet Laureate of the United States.
The Youth Poet Laureate, right. And she's going to recite her poem for the inauguration tomorrow, which you can read online in advance. And it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily.
Her name is Amanda Gorman.
Amanda.